Most people have no idea what their bliss is or even how to figure it out. I'm here today to reveal to you my bliss and the steps that I took in order to find it. Everyone has something that brings them bliss, whether they're currently in realization of that or not. I never took the time to figure out my bliss until I got this incredible opportunity. I had to force myself into the discovery of my bliss, but I promise you it's worth it. When you find your bliss, you'll wonder why you never thought to look for it earlier. I do have to warn you, though. You wouldn't think that figuring out what brings you ultimate happiness and tranquility would make you want to tear your hair out, but it does. Your search is extremely broad, and there's about 1,000 possibilities in front of you. But which is actually your bliss? This journey towards bliss will be challenging and tricky. And in reality, you've known all along what makes you happy. It's probably the simplest little thing that you never even considered, and it's been staring you right in the face this whole time. I overthink things, which is what made finding my personal bliss so stressful. Then I took a step back. What I have trouble realizing is that in life, sometimes it's not all about the little details that will eventually fade away. Sometimes you have to look at the whole picture and see the beauty in what's all around you. The devil is in the details. What I understood is that when I overthink things, it stops me from enjoying the whole picture. I'm at bliss when I don't care if everything is perfect because I know that it never will be. I'm at bliss when I don't have thoughts whirling around my head at a mile a minute. I began to see that my bliss is something that allows me to forget my worldly chores, my over-analytical thoughts, and just live. So, what word can you associate with that? I'd say freedom. As you've probably noticed, finding your bliss is a process. It's essentially a life-size game of connect the dots. Juvenile? Yeah, probably, but when you think about it, who is it that participates in juvenile activities? Children. And children are always so happy, so why don't we release the inner child in all of us and take a page from their coloring books? Why don't we try to make this simple and look at the big picture? Children don't care about coloring inside the lines, focusing on the details, and they'll end up creating a big picture that's maybe a bit messy, kind of like life. Symbolic, huh? Children are carefree and don't want to or need to stress about the details. They live by their own rules and do what makes them happy. And we end up loving those messy little drawings that they finish and feel so proud of, don't we? Maybe we should make this simplistic, like they do. Or perhaps that's impossible. You decide. So now it's time to figure out what you can associate with what makes you lose track of time and just live. Told you this was stressful, but it doesn't have to be. As I began to connect a few dots, I began to enjoy this puzzle. So what can I associate with freedom, you may ask? It took me a while, but eventually I arrived upon my conclusion. Wind. You can associate wind with freedom, and wind brings me bliss. But it's not exactly the wind that brings me bliss. Confusing? Yeah. As you begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you'll realize that bliss isn't a thing. A trophy isn't bliss. A book is not bliss. Music is not bliss. The wheels in your head begin to turn, and you stumble upon this realization, as I did, when you try to explain your bliss to someone. I caught a glimpse of this when I asked one of my peers what their bliss was. Photography, they said sheepishly, not happy to admit something so personal to someone who could judge them so quickly and without a second thought. And then they'd add quickly, but it isn't just photography, and they'd try to explain. They'd trip over their words as they tried so hard to get me to understand why it was their bliss. They'd try so hard to stop me from judging, even though I was in no position to. I too find bliss in something so silly and materialistic. if we can call wind something materialistic. But what makes it so hard to describe bliss are the feelings behind it. To me, photography is fun, but it doesn't bring me bliss. To my peers, the wind is nice, but what's blissful about it? To them, nothing is. But to me, the wind grants a feeling of freedom that allows me to let go of my worldly responsibilities. Now, of course, we as people all have responsibilities, and we can't just hide away from them. That's not what bliss does. The wind provides a break from my responsibilities for just a moment so that I may relax and live. Bliss is all about feeling. Just like you can't see the wind, but you can feel it, bliss works the same way. To show you how wind allows me the feeling of freedom, I'm going to tell you about some research on how wind and weather can affect your mood and comfort, just like it can affect my happiness. So let's talk about the weather. I'm sure we've all noticed how our mood changes when the weather does. That's partially because it actually has an impact on our body. I read a piece on humidity by Paul Robbins that started me in the direction of understanding the effects of weather. Humidity is the measure of water vapor in the air, which is what can make the air feel warmer than what it really is. Moisture content will increase as the temperature of the air does. Interestingly enough, humidity alone has the power to affect our health and comfort. If the atmosphere's moisture content is at a high level, the rate of evaporation will decrease, impairing the body's ability to maintain constant temperatures. Your physical strength will decline and fatigue will occur. And that's all because of humidity. Think about it. When the temperature begins to climb into the 90s and the humidity rises with it, how do you feel? Tired, slow, grumpy maybe? This is an example of how something that you can't see can affect how you feel. Then there's the temperature. Upon reading a study on combined effects of noise and temperature on human comfort and performance by Tiller, Muser, Wang, and Raddick, I saw even more how something that can't be seen can affect a person. Temperature plays a large role in a person's comfort. Experimentation shows that subjects become sensitive to manipulations of their environment. The subjects in this particular experiment were more comfortable when the temperature was in the 70s than when it increased into the 80s or decreased into the 60s. Now think about this. 70-degree weather finally arrives and you can go outside and enjoy your time out there. Aren't you a lot happier when the temperature is in the 70s than, say, in the 80s? Your happiness is a dependent factor on the independent factor that is weather, just like bliss can be a dependent factor with any number of variables. Now let me backtrack just a little. Wind isn't my bliss because bliss isn't a thing. To help you better understand this, let me tell you about a piece of text called Climate and Health created by the World Health Organization. In this text, the negative impacts of weather are the topic. I talked about humidity a moment ago, but to talk about this is to delve into another subject of the spectrum. We have to understand that weather can have a huge effect on health and can cause major damages. Floods, earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, hypothermia, droughts, etc. All of these examples of severe weather and climate-related impacts can have substantial effects on well-being. The reason I bring up these negative impacts is for the purpose of showing you how a thing cannot be bliss. To say that wind is my bliss is to say that I find happiness in its aspects. Yet I don't find bliss in these major devastations, some of which wind contributed to create. Wind can be erratic, but so can people. The wind can be calm, peaceful, and hostile, and so can people. In summary, the wind has many different forms of expression, which can be compared to the way a person has many different moods and feelings. Not every expression of wind brings happiness. There's something in the way that it hits me that brings me bliss. It's not wind as a whole that brings me bliss. It's one expression of wind. But if bliss were a thing, I couldn't find my bliss in the wind. This force of nature that surrounds us constantly is my bliss. It's always been there bringing me happiness and relaxation, yet I never took the time to realize how it makes me feel. I actually laughed when I realized it. It's so simple, but I made it so hard. I feel like we as people tend to do this often, make something more complicated than what it really is. That's why it's so important to find something in life that makes you forget to make things complicated and that allows you to just breathe, to just live. When I'm outside with the wind in my hair and causing me to smile, I can live. My bliss can be found all around me, but sometimes I don't take the time to experience it. We as people get too caught up in where we have to be in an hour or what we have to do tomorrow that we forget to really experience and live our lives. When you take that time to become one with your surroundings, to smile, to live, you're in bliss. Now we just have to figure out a way to do that all the time. But we shouldn't make that a chore, just like finding your bliss shouldn't be a chore. I've realized that. We should make it an experience, a journey. When you begin on your way towards the discovery of bliss, try to set forth with a feeling. That way you're able to land on an activity, an item, an experience, etc., that you can tie to that feeling. Bliss is not a thing. So as we all journey through life, learning its important lessons and experiencing what it has in store for all of us, I encourage you not to focus on the many things on your to-do list. Instead, focus on what makes you feel at bliss and allow that to guide you on your journey. And I'll try to do the same. I hope our time together has been a bit thought-provoking, and I could not encourage you more to find your bliss and follow your bliss. Thank you.